devaluing the dollar by raising the price of gold. Keep that in mind. So Tether, anytime the dollar moves, they keep buying gold with the interest profit, which devalues the dollar. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if Trump said, Bo, I'm going to put you in here. You'll make more money than you can ever imagine. But the gold and Bitcoin that you buy, you're going to end up selling it to the Treasury over time. Now, that's a guess, but it's too obvious. It's just like Stephen Mirren, who was the architect of the Mar-a-Lago Accord, which advocates for a devalued dollar to reshore manufacturing. He took the vacated spot at the Fed when Lisa, whatever, she ended up getting in trouble, and he took the spot. Goldman Sachs says gold will go to the moon if the market believes the Fed has lost independence. What independence? Stephen Mirren was his advisor and the architect of the freaking Mar-a-Lago Accord, and now he's at the Fed. I digress. Anyways, so we look then, so what that's going to do is give synthetic demand for the Treasury, keep the short end of the curve up to 2 years, interest rates low, give the government money to operate synthetically and allow the continual buying of gold and Bitcoin to pay down the debt and devalue the dollar. And the Shanghai Gold Exchange, which is now expanding their vault structure in a series of multi-jurisdictional vaults around the world, largely the Belt Road, which is the largest infrastructure project in human history that China embarked upon, connecting Asia, Africa, and South America through a series of bridges and roads and maritime channels and whatnot. China is expanding their vaulting system. The first one was just completed in Hong Kong. What's relevant about that is that any gold that leaves China has to go through Hong Kong. So they have also made the yuan immediately convertible into gold without converting back into dollars. So if China sells their oil or buys oil from Saudi Arabia and pays in digital yuan, which settles just like that, no SWIFT interference, Saudi Arabia can take that digital yuan and immediately convert it into gold in Hong Kong and take possession. But I mentioned that they are expanding their infrastructure. The second vault is under construction right now in Saudi Arabia. Now, that's a big deal. Trade with every other country in local currencies instead of dollars. Part of the petrodollar deal was that everyone had to use dollars to buy oil. 2 years ago, when the 50-year anniversary of that deal came up that was made between Kissinger and the Saudis, they said, we'll still take dollars, but we're going to take other currencies too. So in this example, they sell oil to China for digital yuan and settle imbalances in gold, take possession of the gold right there in Hong Kong, soon to be in Saudi Arabia, and soon to be in a series of vaults all through the Belt Road, through Asia and Africa that will connect already with the vaults in Shanghai, Dubai, Moscow, St. Petersburg, Singapore. All of these countries have been the ones massively accumulating gold, which is what? The only other tier one asset, according to the Bank of International Settlements, the most powerful bank in the world.
Saudi Arabia, once the cornerstone of the petrodollar order, is now embracing multi-currency oil pricing. When China buys oil in digital yuan, Saudi Arabia can instantly redeem those yuan for gold stored in Hong Kong, soon also available in new SGE vaults inside the kingdom. This shift dissolves the decades-old rule that oil must be purchased in dollars. As more Belt and Road countries adopt this system, the dollar loses its monopoly over energy payments. A vast trading bloc, BRICS, the CO ASEAN partners, representing most of the world's population, is now exploring commodity-based settlement beyond U.S. oversight.
So instead of buying treasuries, and by the way, over the last decade, the 10-year treasury has fared 50% gold has doubled the 10%, the 10-year treasury. So let's say it that way. I don't know why that was so hard for me to say. It's doubled the performance of the 10-year treasury. And so instead of holding treasuries, which can be weaponized and mismanaged in terms of fiscal and monetary policy through inflation and carelessness, these countries can sidestep it because remember, the petrodollar deal said you'll take dollars for oil and any excess reserves you'll put in treasuries. That was the deal. And that was the benefit for this country with low interest rates, high asset prices, cheap goods. Well, now, instead of treasuries, they're using gold. And instead of dollars, they're using all of these countries' central bank currencies. Sergei Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, said anyone that wants to use the new BRICS payment system, except for the UK, the European Union, and the United States, they can do so. They're opening it up to the majority of the world. And when you throw in the Belt Road, which is already 75% of human population, along with BRICS, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and the Eurasian Economic Union, and the members of the Asianic members in China and Southeast Asia who have just signed up to the bridge network. By the way, they have those Asian countries have doubled the population of the U.S., 800 million people, and they represent about 35% of a global GDP and the largest trading partner, the Chinese by far. All of these countries will not use dollars to settle anymore and or to purchase and or treasuries to hold reserves. And so gold is taking the place of the treasury over there. And that's why all of these countries are rushing to buy commodities, because they understand the significance of commodities versus paper promises by a government that will take them from you, sanction you if they don't agree with what you're doing. But on this side, it's different. All right, so we know what's going on over there.
The Bank for International Settlements elevated gold to a Tier 1 asset in 2019, quietly legitimizing it as equal to cash and sovereign debt. Since then, nations across Eurasia have aggressively increased gold reserves while reducing exposure to U.S. Treasuries, whose long-term performance has lagged dramatically. Central banks recognize the vulnerability of dollar reserves, sanctions risk, inflation, and political weaponization. In response, countries are hoarding commodities, gold, oil, metals, rather than paper promises. The result is a major structural flip. Eastern financial systems now treat gold as the ultimate reserve asset, replacing the role treasuries traditionally played.
On this side, if you wanted to first bring back gold to have a system that's tied to gold, you need to get it all back here. So the first ruse was Trump's telling everyone that there were tariffs that he was going to levy on gold. Now, the LBMA, the London Bullion Metals Association, and the COMEX, you have the European commercial banks and the United States commercial banks, and they trade back and forth metal between the COMEX and the LBMA through a vehicle which is called exchange for physical, where you can exchange a paper contract for the bar and send it back home. And it goes back and forth all the time. So these banks said, we need to get all our gold back in case we get requests for delivery on all of our short positions. Send it back because of these tariffs. Don't worry, it'll all come back. I was screaming since last November, that's not true. He's reshoring the gold. He's reshoring the gold. Since November of last year, when he won the election, even before he took office, we've become the largest importer of gold in the world. We've always been a net exporter. Billions and billions and billions and billions of gold and silver have come in every month for the last year. Really strange. So number one, first step, reshore all the gold. Tell everyone it's tariffs. It ain't tariffs. It's reshoring, right? And I believe there's a high probability it will be at the expense of the European banks who are massively short in London, massively short. They're expecting maybe to get that gold back in case some of these countries, which have been standing for delivery for the last 4 years, continue. And we're seeing huge delivery requests and problems around that. Ain't going back. The second step is create something called the Genius Act. And the Genius Act was passed recently. And this is a diabolically genius plan. What the Genius Act says is that anytime money moves, pretty soon, once it's fully implemented, it will move on a blockchain network. So you can say goodbye to checks and goodbye to wires. This will settle like Venmo and Zelle. You're in a Ford dealership and you need to buy a new Ford. You don't have to go to the bank to buy your F-150 and send a wire. You can do it right there like you do Venmo. It's in your account. Boom, done.
While the East accumulates gold, the U.S. has been quietly pulling metal back home. Under the pretense of tariff warnings, American and European banks accelerated the repatriation of bullion over the past year. Meanwhile, the Genius Act, a new financial framework, pushes all dollar transactions onto regulated blockchain rails using stablecoins backed by short-term U.S. treasuries. Every digital dollar movement, from buying groceries to transferring business funds, creates synthetic demand for these treasuries. Corporations will issue their own stablecoins, but treasury-backed reserves generate interest that private issuers keep, creating a powerful new revenue system.
So this blockchain network will move with, on that blockchain network will be stablecoins. Stablecoins, this is a stablecoin legislation bill, says that anytime dollar moves, it will move via stablecoins on a blockchain network. Now, the stablecoins, which are highly legislated and regulated, will be backed primarily by U.S. treasuries, okay? short-term treasuries up to 2 years. This gives synthetic demand for the short-term treasury instead of organic demand where people want to own our treasuries. Anytime anyone in the world moves US dollars, it will move via blockchain pegged to stable coins backed primarily by US treasuries, okay? Those treasuries, the interest on those treasuries is not transferable. I'll get to what that means in a moment. The primary beneficiary of this, now all sorts of corporations will issue their own stable coins back 1-to-1 to the dollar, backed primarily by US treasuries, pushing interest rates low on the front end, right? Giving synthetic demand and money to run the government's fiscal irresponsibility. So the primary, finish that thought, the corporations like American Express and Visa, they'll all have stable coins, but they'll all be tied to treasuries. The primary benefactor of this will be a company called USA Tether. USA Tether is an offshoot of Tether. It's a new company tied to it. It's a subsidiary of it. Right now, Tether holds more gold than just about anyone in the world other than a central bank, almost $13 billion worth. USA Tether, the CEO of this new division, is a man named Bo Hines. Bo was Trump's crypto czar until August. He is benefiting from the rules he implemented. And if I had to guess, there's a wink, wink, nod, nod there that you're going to give us this stuff, but let me tell you how it goes. So
this new blockchain-based dollar system concentrates enormous power in issuers like USA Tether, a subsidiary led by former policymakers. Because interest on the treasuries backing stablecoins does not flow to users, issuers accumulate vast profits. Those profits are being used not to buy more dollars, but to accumulate gold and Bitcoin, assets that inherently rise as the dollar weakens. This is the debasement trade, now openly discussed on Wall Street. As gold and Bitcoin climb, the dollar falls in purchasing power. The model resembles Roosevelt's 1933 playbook: raise gold's price to strategically devalue the currency and restructure national debt.
You buy a new car, you pay for it. Those stable coins are burned, they're gone. The interest on the treasuries that were backing those stable coins is not transferable to you or the car dealership. Tether holds them. Tether is buying gold with the proceeds of those, the movement or the profit in the treasury holdings. Instead of buying more dollars or more treasuries, they are buying gold. Now, and Bitcoin. And I believe one of the Russian foreign ministers said the US is going to screw the world. They're going to put all their debt in the cloud and pay for it that way. What he was saying is exactly this. You'll get a company like Tether who will get all of this interest on every time dollar moves, whether you're buying a pack of chewing gum or a new house, it'll be tied to treasuries, which pushes down rates. They get to keep the interest. They buy gold and Bitcoin. Both of those things, as they go higher, devalues the dollar. This is the whole idea. Even the mainstream is calling it the debasement trade. So they buy things that devalue the dollar. To give you an example of what I mean by that, the dollar is only down 8 or 9% against a basket of crappy currencies, the Dixie index, right? The dollar index. But it's down 100% almost against silver this year, 70% against gold, 65 or 70% against platinum. These are the assets, the benchmarks by which we should measure the valuation of a currency. And I can show you how that works when I'm done explaining this. We go back 20 years and I'll show you in ounces of gold and versus dollars in real estate what I'm talking about. But in any case, it devalues the dollar. So I believe they will continue to buy Bitcoin, doing the periodic rug pull, and use it to pay down the debt and let it go up, take some out, pay down the debt. But the second thing they'll do is continue to buy gold with all of this excess money that they're making. As gold continues to go higher, the dollar goes lower. It is how you devalue the dollar. When Roosevelt confiscated gold in 1933, it was a $20 gold coin that he took, and plus all of the other 10, 5, 2.5, et cetera. But the $20 gold coin was basically what it was all based off of. He paid everyone $20.67. That was the bonus for turning in your gold. With a dozen eggs being a nickel, 67 cents was a lot of money. So then he immediately devalued the dollar by 40%, making gold $35.
The United States faces a huge structural dilemma: a massive debt load and decades of offshored manufacturing. Modern policymakers increasingly argue that preserving dollar reserve status prevents industrial revival. Quietly weakening the dollar through gold appreciation, Bitcoin cycles, and substantial liquidity injections may be the only path to restoring domestic production. A cheaper dollar makes American manufacturing competitive again and reduces real debt burdens. Technologies like robotics and AI will redefine labor, but without rebuilding manufacturing, the nation risks long-term decline. The emerging strategy hints at a controlled reset, financial engineering to make producing at home viable once again.
Devaluing the dollar by raising the price of gold. Keep that in mind. So Tether, anytime the dollar moves, they keep buying gold with the interest profit, which devalues the dollar. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if Trump said, Bo, I'm going to put you in here. You'll make more money than you can ever imagine. But the gold and Bitcoin that you buy, you're going to end up selling it to the Treasury over time. Now, that's a guess, but it's too obvious. It's just like Stephen Mirren, who was the architect of the Mar-a-Lago Accord, which advocates for a devalued dollar to reshore manufacturing. He took the vacated spot at the Fed when Lisa, whatever, she ended up getting in trouble, and he took the spot. Goldman Sachs says gold will go to the moon if the market believes the Fed has lost independence. What independence? Stephen Mirren was his advisor and the architect of the freaking Mar-a-Lago Accord, and now he's at the Fed. I digress. Anyways, so we look then, so what that's going to do is give synthetic demand for the Treasury, keep the short end of the curve up to 2 years, interest rates low, give the government money to operate synthetically, and allow the continual buying of gold and Bitcoin to pay down the debt and devalue the dollar. Now, here's the other end of the question. How do you bring back manufacturing? We already got it. This is going to massively devalue the dollar, where if you save in dollars, you're dead. We have such a massive debt burden. The only way to pay it back is to either inflate, you could default, or you can produce your way out of it. How do we produce when we don't have any manufacturing, right? And AI is going to kill, and robotics going to kill so much of what is considered a good paying job. You have to bring back manufacturing. How do you do that? And no matter what, we have to bring back manufacturing, or our kids and our grandkids have no future, right? We can't be reliant on China for everything from aspirin to military components to aircraft parts, et cetera. We have to do this ourselves. The only way you can do it, as both Jared Bernstein, the chief economic advisor for Biden, and the vice president, Vance, the only way you do it is get rid of the reserve status, which they both advocate for, right? We can't afford it anymore. It's too much of a drag on our ability to make anything. So you quietly debase the dollar through letting gold go higher, letting Bitcoin go higher, and printing copious amounts of money, right? The Fed has already injected $200 billion into the repo market in the last few weeks. That's another form of QE that's very inflationary. But how do we bring back manufacturing? How about what Judy Shelton said? Now, Judy was on my podcast twice.